I don't think it's a big shock to anyone when I say that Star Wars hasn't had the best couple of years. There's been a poorly received trilogy, even though it did make a lot of money. Not a lot of people, I feel, really enjoyed those movies. Multiple director and behind the scenes changes on multiple different projects, and even cancellation of said projects. Still don't know about that Rian Johnson trilogy. Is that happening, Lucasfilm? Can you just let us know? Let us prepare for what we're going to have to go through. And each streaming installment over on Disney Plus progressively seeming to get worse, with right after Mando Season 2, Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, Mando Season 3. But the one exception to that has been Andor. Gosh, that show was so freaking good. I love that show. I love Andor. Can't wait for season 2. And from what I've heard and from what I've seen in the trailers, it seemed like Ahsoka was just going to be another addition to this catalog of okay to bad Star Wars shows. And although I do think it's too early to put it into any category, I will say I was pleasantly surprised with the first 2 episodes. Were they really good Star Wars? I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't even say that this is the show that's going to set Star Wars back on track. I don't think any of that. But what I did see from these first 2 episodes that I'm super pumped about is potential. The bad thing, though, is although I did see potential, I saw potential both in the good and in the bad. And I feel like this show could be really, really good. But the caveat for that is that I can also see it being very, very bad. There's early signs for both. And I really hope it goes the good route, but Lucasfilm has not had a good history of delivering. But really what we see in the first 2 episodes, and I'm not going to get into this much because this isn't my full review, is we see Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hera are attempting to stop Baylan Morgan Elsbeth. I think that's her name. I still can't believe that's a name in Star Wars, but whatever. Trying to stop this group of former Imperials and mercenaries from attempting to find Thrawn and bring him back in hopes of starting another war, while at the same time they're trying to find Ezra again. Because wherever Thrawn went, that's probably where Ezra's going to be. It's a decent premise for this story. However, I am somewhat disappointed that this story just seems like Rebels Season 4 or Season 5. I don't remember how many seasons Rebels had, but this just feels like a continuation of Rebels and not so much an Ahsoka solo series. And we'll get to that in a second. But I just gotta say this right off the bat, the villains in the show, with the exception of Morgan, I think the villains are really enticing and are done really well this season. And are done really well off the bat. Baylan, Shin, the Inquisitor are all uber mysterious, and I'm really looking forward to their connections to the Jedi Order, what they went through during the original trilogy, and why the Inquisitor's still there. I'm very interested in the Inquisitor, and if these fan theories are true, man, that's going to be really cool to see in live action. But they're very interesting, and I think they're very well done. I love the idea of the big old giant sword lightsaber that Baylan has. That looks so cool, and I can't wait for him to face off against Ahsoka. That duel is going to be so cool. Although their plan isn't the greatest thing, I think the villains and their characters in and of themselves are interesting enough to kind of look past the whole episode 7 revamp story plot-wise. Everyone's trying to find the map that leads to Thrawn. We've seen this before, which is fine. Star Wars loves to recycle content, but at least the characters doing it are a lot more interesting this time. Even though the show is pretty slow, I think episode length is great. That 40 to 50 minutes is a great length for these episodes. And I feel like, especially after Secret Invasion, Disney Plus loves to cut their shows way too short. And I hope they continue throughout the series, and I hope it leads to an hour 10, hour and a half finale. Now, I wouldn't call myself a huge Rebels fan. I enjoyed it, not so much for the Rebels characters, but seeing my favorite Clone Wars characters come back. I didn't watch Rebels during the first season or second season, but once I heard that Ahsoka was in Rebels, that's when I started watching. So it was cool to see certain elements of Rebels in live action, such as Lothal. I think they did a wonderful job bringing Lothal to live action. I also think Rosario Dawson is a great casting choice for Ahsoka, and I think she does a good job here. Now, speaking of Ahsoka, just like so many other Disney Plus shows that I've covered here on this channel, this show, even though it's titled Ahsoka, does not feel like an Ahsoka series. It feels like a Sabine series. Ahsoka seems to be cast to the sidelines in a lot of scenes. And for the majority of some episodes, she does get her moments, don't get me wrong. But when I think back on what I've watched in these first 2 episodes, she rarely comes to mind. The one time is the final scene in the 2nd episode when she's trying to stop them from getting away and it ends up in a lightsaber duel. That was cool. But she doesn't have enough time, and when she does get the time, it's mostly her walking and looking around. And again, it's early. These first 2 episodes do feel like they're just setting things up right now. And so that could change, but right now I don't feel like they're setting up her character at all. They're not setting up an arc for her. They're setting it up for Sabine, but not for Ahsoka. I also have mixed feelings about the Rebels casting. I think Hera's great. Hera was the one character that I was like, that's a good job. That's a good job bringing a character from animation into live action. I will say her character does feel a bit more moody and less like sassy than it did in the show. I also haven't watched the show in like 5 years, but she does seem a tad different, but I can get past that. I think they've done a good job so far. It's too soon to tell with Sabine, and it's way too soon to tell with Ezra, but I'm not a huge fan of it so far. Sabine just feels way too immature for how much time has passed. It's gotta be at least 10 years since Rebels. And although Sabine doesn't seem to have matured at all, she has changed. She doesn't feel like Sabine anymore, at least not the Sabine in Rebels. She's lost that cool factor, that Sabine factor, you know, that made her so enjoyable in the Rebels TV series. And I hope she can get some of that back. I hope by the end of the show we're back to the Sabine we all know and love. But right here, it's just not it right now. And I'm not a huge fan of Ahsoka training Sabine in the ways of the Jedi. I don't think that makes sense. And the show even seems to emphasize the fact that this doesn't make sense. It says that she's not really force sensitive, that there were younglings way more force sensitive than she is. Now, if it's solely for combat and to learn how to use a lightsaber, I'm all down with that. But the show doesn't seem to pitch it that way. It seems to be way more, hey, I'm going to train you to be a Jedi. Which brings up its own problems because Ahsoka is not a Jedi anymore. And the marketing points to that in the show, like the former Jedi. And yet the show really leans into the Jedi side. And it's very weird. I'm like, where is she right now? Because in some instances, like how she gets information, she says, oh, I don't stick to Jedi morals or values in that. But then at the same time, she's trying to train Sabine to be a Jedi. I don't know. I may have missed something, but it just seems weird. It seems off. I think it's a huge missed opportunity for Sabine's character if they just try to make her a Jedi, if they just try to make her a Rey. And I hope they don't go that route. But one of my biggest pet peeves in the first 2 episodes was at the end of episode 1. Spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the first episode. Okay, you've had your chance. The fact that Sabine survived a lightsaber through the chest. Why do lightsabers not do the damage they used to do? I almost feel like this is a big, like, screw you to the prequels. Screw you to Qui-Gon Jinn. Even Han Solo, that's how he died. Or maybe it was the Great Fall, but apparently that doesn't kill people either because Palpatine came back. I don't know. This seems so stupid. I don't understand how she survived this. She shouldn't have survived this. I don't want her to die in the first episode, but if you're gonna put a lightsaber through someone's chest, they're going to die. They have to die. That's how that works. Look, is Ahsoka the show that's gonna save Star Wars? I don't think so. What I think it can do, though, is take little steps forward that can lead to improvement in storytelling in the Disney Plus side. That all being said, I also think it has the potential to ruin a lot of those legacy characters. But we'll see. It has potential, and I really hope they utilize it well. But that's about it from me. Thank you guys for stopping by. I appreciate it. I love y'all. And until next time, peace out, bro skillets.